everyone, I'm Sara Sach and welcome to my crochet channel, or welcome back. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make the school spirit cowl. And the neat thing about this cowl is you can make it into a scarf just by making the back longer, or you can make it into a long infinity scarf. And these are the same colors that I've been using on some of the other projects. We made the fingerless gloves that are school spirit texting gloves. We made the headband ear warmer that is our school spirit headband and ear warmers. And then we also made the school spirit beanies that can be made in 4 different sizes. And this cowl is made to match all of these. Now, if you want all these patterns, there is a link underneath this video in that description box that will lead you to the blog that has the links for all these different patterns. And of course, you'll also find them on my YouTube channel. Now, as far as today's video, this cowl measures about 9 inches tall. And if you make it according to the pattern, it's about 24 inches around. But again, you can add as many rows as you want to the back and make it as long as you want to. You can make it a long infinity scarf or just a long scarf. This one is made in a tube by the buttons. I love big buttons, don't you? They look so cute. And it's really a great way to show school spirit by the kids, by the parents, by the grandparents, by anybody who has a favorite team. And of course, you can make it in your favorite professional team, college team, whatever team in school that you want to. And again, you can find this pattern with pictures in that link that's provided down in the notes underneath this video. So whether you're making a cowl or a scarf, we're still using those same yarns. Medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. Now you're going to need your color 1, which is your main color. And if you're making the cowl, you'll need about 2 ounces. But if you're making the scarf, I would say about 4 or more. It just depends on how long you want to make yours. And then you're going to need about an ounce of your white and your blue, or whatever colors that you're using for your striping. There's just going to be a set like this at each end of the scarf. Okay, so it's up to you what colors that you choose. Choose your child or grandchild or your favorite team for this set. I don't know what team these colors are. I just chose colors that filmed well. Someone asked me the other day, well, what school colors are those? I'm like, I don't know. They just film really well. And I like them together also. You're going to need 3 big buttons. These are 1.5 inch buttons. And we're going to use those to put the end of the cowl together. Now, if you make a long scarf and you want to put the ends together with buttons, you can. Or for the cowl, you'll need 3 nice big buttons. These are not going to button and unbutton. We're going to use it to put the ends together and hold it together. We're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You need a needle for weaving in ends and for sewing on your buttons. And of course, you're going to need a pair of scissors. We're going to begin with our main color. We're starting with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 27 chains. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 chains. So we have 27 chains. We're going to place a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of our chains, working all the way across. 1 double crochet in each of our chains, working all the way across. I've stitched 1 double crochet in each of my chains across. We're going to count this chain 3 at the beginning where we skipped and started in our 4th chain from the hook. So we have 25 double crochets. We're going to chain 3 and turn. And our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Alright, so now we're going to stitch a front post double crochet in the next stitch. Alright, that means we're going to go around the post of the stitch and not in the top of the stitch where we usually do. So we're going to double crochet, so yarn over, go around the post, and finish our double crochet. We're stitching a double crochet, we're just putting it in a different place. Now we're going to stitch a double crochet regular in the next stitch. Then we'll stitch a front post double crochet in the next. And so what we're doing for row 2 is alternating a double crochet and a front post double crochet all the way across for row 2. And you can see those ridges. Let me turn it a little bit so you can see. Alternating every other stitch, double crochet, front post, double crochet, front post, alternating all the way across this row. So I repeated across, double crochet, front post, alternating every other stitch, and you're going to end with a double crochet. So you'll have 12 of your front posts, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 double crochets, which again is a total of 25 stitches. So we're going to chain 3 and turn. Now we'll be stitching back posts because we turned our work. Our chain 3 counts as our first, so we're going to stitch a double crochet around that back post. Then we'll stitch a regular double crochet in the next stitch. You'll double crochet around that back post and then double crochet in the next stitch. And this is going to make that nice edge for our cowl or scarf, alternating our stitches, back post, double crochet, regular double crochet. And let me show you how it looks. This of course is the back, but when we turn it to the front, we've made those stitches longer. And they're called back post when you do it on the back side because you're stitching on the back. But when you turn it over, all those back post stitches are stitched in those front post stitches. All right, and so that's what we're doing for row 3. We're alternating our back post double crochet stitches and our regular double crochet stitches all the way across. So I stitched across, alternating double crochet and back post double crochet. I'm going to chain 3 and turn. And again, you'll see those nice ridges that make the edge of our scarf. All right, so now what we're going to do for row 4 is we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. Our chain 3 counts as our double crochet, and then we're going to front post around those post stitches. And we'll alternate again our double crochet and front post double crochet stitches. And we'll repeat this all the way across, alternating a double crochet and a front post double crochet. So for row 4, I repeated row 2, alternating double crochets and front post stitches. I'm going to chain 3 and turn, and now we're going to repeat what we did on row 3. Our double crochet counts as our first. We're going to stitch a back post, double crochet in the next stitch, and then alternate across, double crochet and back post, double crochet. And that back post double crochet can sometimes seem a little bit clumsy, but just take your time. It's well worth the way that it looks on the edges of our scarf or cowl, whichever you're making. See how those ridges all line up? Makes it super pretty and nice and stretchy and comfortable. All right, so I'm just going to repeat this across for row 5. I have completed row 5. See our ridges that go all the way up? That forms our nice stretchy end of our band. Now we're finished, so we're with this color, so we're not going to chain 3. We're going to go ahead and cut our yarn. So we're going to bring in our color 2, which I'm using white, and we'll go ahead and chain 1. Snug everything down, turn our work, and what we're going to do for row 6 is we're just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each stitch across. Now the chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we'll go right in that first double crochet and we'll stitch 1 single crochet, and you'll notice that I'm stitching over the ends of that yarn just for a couple of stitches, maybe 3 or 4. And then we'll let those drop down and we'll come back in with our needle and weave those in later. All right, so now I'm just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of the stitches across. I've stitched 1 single crochet in each of those stitches across, so I have 25 single crochets. I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And now I'm going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets across, and this is going to give me a nice white stripe across. 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets across. I stitched that second row of my white yarn, 1 single crochet in each across. Now I'm going to cut my white yarn and bring in my blue. This is my color 3. And again, you can do yours in any colors that you want to. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now, for row 8, we're going to be stitching half double crochets. All right, so we're going to yarn over. We're going to stitch over those tails of yarn to get them off the side. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 of those loops. And again, I'm stitching over those tails of yarn for 2 or 3, maybe 4 stitches. My blue tail's a little bit short, so I'm just going to do 3. And the purpose of that is so that we don't have bumps on the sides, so it lays nice and pretty. And then we can come back in with our needle and weave those ends in. All right, so I'm stitching 1 half double crochet in each of those single crochets across using my color 3. I stitched 1 half double crochet in each of my single crochets. You're going to have 25 because we aren't adding or subtracting any stitches. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and again stitch 1 half double crochet in each of those half double crochets across. So we're doing a second row of half double crochets. One half double crochet in each of my half double crochets across. I stitched 1 half double crochet in each of my half double crochets. I'm going to chain one and turn, and I already chained one, so I'm just going to turn. And now we're going to repeat this for 2 more rows. We're going to do 2 more rows of half double crochets in our blue yarn. That'll give us a nice thick band. All right, so we're repeating row 9 for 2 more rows. 1 half double crochet in each of the half double crochets across, chain 1, turn, and repeat. And that will give us 4 rows of our half double crochet in our color 3. I stitched those last 2 rows of my half double crochet in my color 3. So I have 4 rows of that. Now we're going to cut our yarn. We're going to bring back in our color 2. Chain 1. And now we're going to do 2 rows of single crochet like we did here. So we'll go in that first stitch because our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And again, I'm stitching over the first couple of stitches. Now I drop those. You can do 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you're comfortable with, or not at all if you want to weave them in the end. I like doing it this way because I think it makes a much more neat edge. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch 2 rows of single crochet with my color 2, just like we did right here. And again, you'll have 25 stitches on each row for all of our cowl or scarf because we're not adding or subtracting any stitches. So I'm going to stitch 2 rows of single crochet just like I did down here. I stitched those 2 rows of single crochet just like I did down here, 1 single crochet in each stitch, chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in each stitch. Now we're going to change back to our color 1. So I'm going to cut my white and bring back in my color 1. So I've got my color 1. I'm going to bring it back in, snug that down, and we're going to chain 3. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So we'll turn our work and we'll begin stitching double crochets in the next stitch because our chain 3 counts as our first. So we'll double crochet in the next single crochet, and then again I'm stitching over those tails of yarn to get them off the edge. Then we'll just let those drop, and again we'll weave those in later. Alright, so now I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those single crochets all the way across. Our chain 3 counts as our first, and then we're stitching 1 double crochet in each of the single crochets across in our color 1. So we started with a chain 3 and we double crocheted in each of the single crochets across. So we have 25 double crochets. We're going to chain 3, and our chain 3 will count as our first double crochet on each of these rows in the center of our scarf and cowl. So we're going to double crochet in each of the double crochets across, and again that chain 3 counts as our first, so we started in the next, and we're going to double crochet in each of those double crochets. One double crochet in each of the double crochets across. I stitched that second row of double crochet, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this This is row 15. We're going to repeat that for 19 more rows if you're making the cowl. Now, if you're making the scarf, I recommend that you do 29 or maybe 39 rows, depending on how long you want to make it. If you're making this for a child, you can do less. If you're making it for an adult, you can do more. It's up to you. And the guide is, when you're making a scarf, you make the scarf for as tall as the person is. For instance, if your child is 4'11", you want to try to make your scarf 4 feet 11 inches long. But keep in mind, you've got this whole section here that we're going to add to the other end of the scarf. When you're adding length in the center, keep that in mind. Now for the cowl, we're going to be repeating row 15 for 19 more rows. So I have stitched those 19 additional rows, and this brings us up to row 34. Now again, 3 rows equals about 2 inches. So if you want to make this longer, keep in mind that you're going to have this section down here that we're going to be adding to this section when you're making it into a longer cowl or scarf. All right? Your best bet is to keep your tape measure handy and measure as you go. So now what we're going to do on this end is do what we did on this end. We're going to do 2 rows of the white, 4 rows of the blue, 2 rows of the white, and then end with our front and back post stitches. So I'm going to cut my gray yarn, or my color 1. I'm going to bring in my color 2, which is my white. Chain 1 and turn. And I'm going to stitch a single crochet in that first stitch because the chain 1 does not count as a stitch or single crochet. And I'm going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those double crochets. And again, I'm stitching over my yarn, and I'll come back in and weave that in later. All right, so I'm going to do 2 rows of single crochet just like we did at the beginning down here. So I'm doing 2 rows of single crochet, 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets across. Then I'll chain 1 and turn and do another row of single crochets with my color 2. I stitched those 2 rows of single crochet. I am going to cut my white. So I'm bringing in my blue, which is my color 3. We're going to chain 1, and we've turned our work already. And now we're going to stitch 1/2 double crochet in each of those stitches across. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we're going to go right in that first stitch and stitch a 1/2 double crochet. And again, I'm stitching over those tails of yarn just for a couple of stitches, 3 or 4, whatever works best. And then again, we'll come back in and weave those in later. All right, so now I'm going to repeat what I did down here and stitch 4 rows of 1/2 double crochets. And we're doing this in our color 3, which is the blue that I'm using. And of course, you use whatever colors that you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch 4 rows of 1/2 double crochet in each stitch across, chain 1 and turn. I've stitched those 4 rows of 1/2 double crochet just like we did on this end. And so now I'm going to cut my yarn and bring back in my color 2, which is my white. There we go. And chain 1. And now we're going to do those 2 rows of single crochet like we did here. So we have 2 rows of color 2 on both sides of our color 3 stripe. All right, so I'm just going to stitch single crochet in that first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch across, chain 1, and repeat for 2 rows of single crochet in my color 2. We want both ends of our scarf or cowl to look the same. All right, so I'm going to stitch 2 rows of single crochet in my color 2. So now I have a color 2 stripe, my color 3 stripe, and my color 2 stripe the same way we did here, with 2 rows of single crochet, 4 rows of half double crochet, and 2 rows of single crochet. So these are the same. Now we want to work on this portion down here. So I've cut my yarn. I'm bringing in my main color or my color 1. We're going to chain 3 and turn. And what we're going to do on this row is stitch 1 row of double crochets. Our chain 3 counts as our first, so we'll start in the next and stitch 1 double crochet in each stitch across. And again, I stitched over those tails of yarn, and make sure you pull all your tails to the back so that there aren't any tails in the front when you go to weave in your ends. All right? Alrighty, I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those single crochets across. Chain 3 counts as our first, and I'm stitching 1 double crochet in each of those single crochets across. I stitched 1 double crochet in each stitch across. I'm going to chain 3 and turn my work. And this brings us to the front of our work. You should have the ridges on this side facing up. All right? And so now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat what we did down there. Our double crochet counts as our first, then we're going to front post, double crochet in the next, double crochet in the next, and again alternate front post double crochets and regular double crochets all the way across, just like we did on row 2. Double crochet, front post double crochet in the next, and repeat all the way across our row. I have repeated that across, double crochet, front post, alternate across, and again you're going to have 12 front post stitches like we did down here, and then you'll have 13 double crochets. All right, we're going to chain 3 and turn, and now we'll be doing alternating double crochets and back post double crochets, just like we did on row 3. And so we're alternating double crochets and back post double crochets all the way across this row. Again, we want it to look the same as the other end of our cowl or scarf. And we'll repeat this all the way across. Double crochet, back post, double crochet. And yes, those back post double crochets can be just a little bit clumsy, but you'll get used to it. I have repeated double crochet, back post double crochet across, and chain 3. Let's turn it, and you can see those back posts are stitched in the front post of the previous row. And now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the front post row and the back post row one more time each. So we'll have another row of double crochet front post and then another row of double crochet back post. So you're repeating row 2 and row 3 one more time each. So I repeated row 2 and row 3 for another row of the front post alternating and another row of the back post alternating. Now I turn to the front, we chained one, and we're going to just stitch in this same color a row of single crochet. So we'll go right in that first stitch and we'll stitch one single crochet in each of those stitches across. And this is just going to give it a nice finish. Okay? So one single crochet in each of those stitches across. So we single crocheted in each stitch across this end, and it gives it somewhat of the appearance of the chain across this end so that they look similar. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to single crochet down this edge, and this is the edge where we made all of our joins, and it just gives it a much nicer appearance. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I do. I want to do this because I think it will look a lot nicer. And so we're just going to evenly single crochet down the edge, and it can be a little bit tricky single crocheting in double crochet stitches. All right, let me bring my camera in closer so you can see how I do it. The best way to evenly single crochet when you've got bigger stitches like double crochets and half double crochets is to try to stitch in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. Like here we've got the stitch, we're going to go in those sides of that stitch. And there is not a set number of stitches. You just want to try not to bunch it up, but also try not to have your stitches too far apart. All right, and I think by doing this it just gives it a nice edge on this side. And so I'm just going to work my way down, stitching single crochet stitches evenly down the side. And again, there's not a set number of stitches that you have to have. You just want it to lay nice, not bunch up, and not have your stitches too far apart. And I always do a few, take a look at it, make sure it's not bunching up, and then keep going. All right, so I'm going to continue my work down the side of my cowl. And I like to do this row whether I'm making a cowl or a scarf. I single crocheted evenly down this side. I'm going to cut my yarn, tie that off, and I'm going to weave that in. Now I'm not going to do a row of single crochet down this other edge, but you can if you want to. I just don't. All right, because it's the bottom of the cowl. But if you're doing a scarf and both sides are going to be shown a lot, you can. Like I always say, you do what works best for you. All right, now what I want to do next real quick, I weave that end in, but I want to show you how I weave in these other ends. We stitched over them so that they're not on the edge, okay? And so then what you'll do is you'll come back in with your needle and you'll weave that in, making sure you stay in the color, like the gray needs to be stitched in the gray, the white in the white, and the blue in the white, so you don't have pops of color of the wrong shade of yarn. Okay, and so then you're just going to go through some stitches and some fibers of the yarn. I go up, I turn, and I come back the way I came. And then I kind of go down under and just make sure I'm going through stitches. And I do that 2 to 3 times depending on how much yarn I have left. And then that just goes invisible. And you've got a nice edge here without a bump where you've changed colors. All right, so I'm going to tidy the rest of this up and show you how to add your buttons. Whether you're making a scarf or a cowl, you can add buttons. If you made a scarf, you can just add a couple of buttons down here if you want to, Or you can go ahead and put the ends together and make it into a long infinity scarf. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the scarf and put the ends together. This is our cowl that we're making here. And it ends up being about 24 inches around. All right. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. If you want this to be able to open like this, you can add your buttons like this. Okay. If you want the whole thing to close, you can add your buttons like this. Okay, so there are lots of different ways to do this. I'm actually going to do it this way. All right, so we'll take 2 of them off, and we're going to make sure everything's lined up. I've got my white yarn on here, and so what I'm going to do is I want this to be about right here. So I'm going to go in a stitch and come back up, making sure I'm going through this as well. All right, and then I'm going to go back in and do that again. All right, then we'll take our hook and we'll pull this loop under. All right, so now we've got a loop and we know where we're going to put our button. Now this button has holes that are 4 instead of 2, which I kind of like. All right, so I'm going to do the cross. You don't have to. You can do 2 long stitches. You don't have to cross it. I just like to because I think it looks cute. All right, so I'm going to do this. Make sure when I come back up, I'm coming through stitches and not holes. And the reason that's so important is you can, your button can move around and not stay where you want it to be if you go in between the holes of the stitches, okay? And we're not going to be buttoning and unbuttoning this. You just want to put it on so it's nice and secure and looks pretty as well. There we go. All right, so our button's on, and we're going to go behind here. And I'm going to cut this because it's too long right now. And there's 1, 2, 3. And then I like to do that little twist knot that I think looks good. All right, and you get that as close as you can down to that button and clip it. All right. Now, if you don't like the way that this hangs, you can always this is white, but you can always take the matching color of yarn and make a few stay stitches back here just so that it stays put. I personally don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But if you want this to hang open, you want to open this up and then put this button about right there. Okay, make sure you get it attached back there. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch my buttons on 1, 2, 3. And so what I'll do next is I'll do the bottom one. And I want to line it up with that one. And I'll do the same thing that I did. I'm going to make that loop. Pull that string to the back so I can tie off with that. And then I'll sew this button on just like I did the other one. I have sewn on all 3 of my buttons, and now I have an adorable and warm school spirit cowl. And remember, you can make the back of this as long as you want and make it into a scarf or a long infinity scarf, or however you want to make your cowl or scarf, school spirit scarf or cowl. And it will match the fingerless texting gloves, maybe a beanie, or the headband